Look, I'm sorry you guys, but the STEM degree is a scam. As an ex-Google tech lead and somebody who's actually climbed that whole entire STEM degree ladder to the very top, I mean, I went through the AP biology classes, AP chemistry, AP computer science, went through UC Berkeley studying computer science, linear algebra, calculus, useless Fourier transforms and matrices. How often do I use any of this in daily life? How often have I had to implement a binary search tree or quicksort? Never. It's an oversaturated field at this point, and if you're in STEM, you're going to be in for the rat race of a lifetime, competing against the hardest working, hungriest immigrants in the world for their visas, and they need this more than you. They're willing to work harder for than you, at lower pay, cheaper, and worse conditions because they need this. And so quite frankly, I think students are being lied to when we tell them to go into STEM. Do STEM because your parents wanted to do STEM. STEM may have worked in your parents' generation, but today, the landscape's just changed. Other people seem to be noticing this too with a backlash against STEM. Someone notes here, there's a ton of indoctrination that typically goes into STEM degrees which no one seems willing to admit. Arguably, most scientific research data and papers can be fudged or simply made up. There's even a reproducibility crisis where most research papers can't be reproduced. And so a lot of it was simply made up, or the experiments set up in a certain way to bias for a certain desired result, which was paid for by the sponsors of the experiment, right? Paid for by grant money. I mean, just take a look at Dr. Fauci, the vaccinations and COVID masks. They can get science to back up whatever data they wanted to back up. And so what happened to coding? It used to be cool, didn't it? Well, if you think about it, coding is fundamentally about the selling of advertisements on freemium apps and websites. That's the business model for Google, for Facebook, but this broke a while back. These days, people go on social media like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Influencers sell the ads, and then the free apps and websites which are broke try to pay for these ads so that they can get a few users. And so unlike in the past, nowadays your app or website actually has to be good enough to charge money like a subscription fee, and it's not good enough to simply just make something free and throw it up on the App Store because nobody goes through the App Store anymore. It's got no distribution, no visibility. And so even a pretty decent app like, say, Threads from Facebook, or even Facebook itself, is just not going to get much usage these days. It's just not good enough. It's not compelling enough. There's just much better stuff out there, better content. And that content is really part of the problem because we are in an attention economy. It is vital to remember this one fact. So your code is competing with viral content for limited user time because users spend most of their time on social media content. And the problem is this social media content is going viral every single day. Can your code go viral daily? Is your app that addictive and fun? The fact is, code can't really compete with viral content. We saw VR fail, we saw ChatGPT even fail. It had this 15 minutes of fame, but a lot of these very innovative tech services just aren't interesting enough compared to just that daily viral news grind. And so what really happened is media came in and beat code. And in a way, media has always been number one. Hollywood is number one. Coding and engineering were never glamorous jobs historically, similar to, say, construction worker, electrician, or plumber. Today, they're simply the digital equivalents of such. If you look at the longer history of human civilization, engineers were, they were the slaves building the pyramids of Egypt. They were the ones building the Great Wall of China, building the dams, the infrastructure engineers, building toilets and roads. And STEM was mostly this hard path of long hours, low pay, and no status. And it's going to go back to that. And really the people who had the good lives were the rulers, maybe the philosophers like Socrates, the people who could talk and had some influence, or maybe it was folks like Cleopatra. And so in a way, Hollywood has always been number one, and nothing else really comes close. This was the way in the 1950s, where everybody idolized the stars, the actors and actresses, but somehow everyone today seems to have been brainwashed into the STEM degree as the path to success. Hey, you gotta learn robotics, you gotta get into coding, you gotta learn biology, get into matrix math, you gotta learn your eigenvalues, coding, you gotta learn your JavaScript and Java, public static void main string args, return 0. So stupid. Stop that already. So here's what happened. Social media basically democratized the top 1% of Hollywood celebrities into really the top 10% of society, which is the top layer. Now, sure, we all like to hate on these influencers, but nowadays with social media, you've got peers, people from high school who you may know living that lifestyle, and these are the people that you need to now compete with as a STEM degree. Now, actually below that level, you also now have the no-code solutions and all the entrepreneurs that come with them, because coding has advanced to a degree where we've got no-code solutions and coders are just obsoleting themselves by building all these solutions that anybody can use nowadays. And then in the lowest rungs of society, the bottom, say 50% least desirable portion, maybe you've got the engineers and the rest of the 9 to 5 working class, who nobody's really interested in. It's essentially a life of slavery, competing with the immigrants for their visas. And if you already have a visa, then why are you even in this competition? It doesn't even make sense anymore at that point. It's just a lot of hard work for nothing. And that's you. You know, when I was conducting interviews for Fang at Google and Facebook, I would occasionally interview these immigrants who were just so smart. I mean, they knew every lead code question. They could ace them just one after the other, perfect answers. And they would smoke any American. I mean, they were brilliant candidates. America needs that kind of talent. We should bring them in, but it's just personally, I would not want to compete at that level. I mean, I've got better things to do than that, and maybe you should find something better to do as well. And even in the coding competitions, like the ACM competitions, I've competed in that before, Americans just don't stand a chance because we just don't want it enough. You would be a fool to compete on STEM alone. And then, of course, to make matters worse, you've got AI and ChatGPT moving in as well on your job.